Chemistry 19.8, last read of the chapter. The answers here at the top, 1 through 3, we had a nuclear fission reactor as one of the parts of a nuclear power plant. Second part is a turbine and a generator that work together. And then the last item was a condenser, is what we were looking for. A problem with nuclear fission, you could have your choice of a lot of things here that they talked about. Thermal pollution in rivers means the rivers are getting warmer than you might want them to be. And that might not be good for your local wildlife. Disposing the waste is an issue. Theft of the fissionable material is a potential issue if bad guys are stealing the uranium. Nuclear accidents is a concern. They discussed a couple nuclear accidents that I'll run through in a minute, but those are all out there. Reasons that these power plants might be workable in some ways. There's newer nuclear fusion plants that are better than the fission ones. For 5, there's less thermal pollution there. There's a lower risk of an accident. Those were things that they mentioned in there. 6, the first box was about radon. 7, 8, you could research that and just reread the box if you had to, but that's what the new words are. As we step into 19.8 and toward the test, the 19.8 quiz is humongous. So what I'm going to say you should do for your 19.8 quiz is probably not even bother trying to take that like it's a quiz, but just fill it in by pulling all your research together from through the chapter. And use your book, use your notes, pull it together, 19.8b, just write those out, but try to pay attention to what you're doing as you do them. Someday when we take the test soon, you would need to have those jammed in your memory by then, but I don't see making you jam it in your memory, write it all out, jam it in your memory again, write it all out. I think if you write it all out twice, jam it in your memory for the second time, I think that should be pretty sufficient. But the 19.8b quiz has some reworking of things. So let's see. 1, 2, 3 will stay the same. There's no follow-up questions about that. It's just naming the parts. So nuclear fission reactor, turbine generator, condenser, just name the stuff. A little bit of interesting trivia on there. 16% of the power at the time of our book was coming from those kind of reactors at the time. Follow-up question on the reactors there. I asked how you control the heat in a nuclear fission generator, and it's a combination of cadmium rods and water. There is a Simpsons episode where a cadmium rod is the hero of the episode. It saves everybody's life, the cadmium rod. So you can research that on YouTube. So you can find the Simpsons where the cadmium rod saves the power plant from a meltdown. I think it's the one where Homer had left a bobbing head doll thing to push a button for him because he was a little bit too lazy to man the controls for some reason. The newer reactors here around number 4-ish, I'll ask why you can't, around number 4 is kind of reactor, why you can't get an explosion in those, and it's because there's only 2 to 3% uranium-235. A bomb has 90% uranium-235. So bombs with uranium are explosive because some kinds of uranium are explosive. Uranium-235 is an explosive kind of uranium. Bombs are 90% of that uranium. But these reactors are only 2 or 3% of that kind of uranium. So the power plants shouldn't explode like bombs. However, people could steal that stuff and make a bomb. That would be a side issue. The 4 problems with these are still there. The thermal pollution in rivers, the risk of accidents, the theft of the fissionable materials, disposing the waste is all in there. There's a lot of arguments about where the waste should go, and the book described a few ideas they had of where to put the waste. But there's always just huge political fights over the waste because as long as you don't live in New Mexico, it sounds like a good idea to take it out to New Mexico and put it in a cave or something there in New Mexico. The people in New Mexico don't see it that way. The other issue you run into when you say take the fissionable stuff and send it to New Mexico, it has to travel through a whole lot of other states. And so if you had a plant in Tennessee and it's going to take its waste to New Mexico, well, we don't care. It sounds good to us. We live in Pennsylvania. We're not really on that route. But that's going to have to travel probably by train or something through a lot of other states. And the states that you would pass going from Tennessee to New Mexico are not real thrilled even about the stuff passing through their state on a train. So there's always just huge fights about where the waste is going to go, how it's going to get there, what are they going to do with it once it's there. That's a big issue with these power plants. It's a political battle always nonstop anytime that comes up, because no one wants the waste and no one wants the waste to travel through their state, but everybody wants electricity. So sort of toss up there. I'll ask you where and when there were two meltdowns and get a little bit into the history of this without getting too detailing. 3 Mile Island is an answer. That's from 1979. That's out near Harrisburg. Some of you, if you've traveled out toward Harrisburg, you might have even seen that power plant right on the river there as you travel along. Chernobyl, probably no one's seen Chernobyl other than in movies. But Chernobyl was 1986. That was the one that was in Russia, where right now they have all that stuff contained in a thing called a sarcophagus, but it's sort of falling apart, so there's just issues there in the long term. Radon, I have 2 radon-based questions. Radon in Pennsylvania is a big deal. There's a lot of homes in Pennsylvania that have a radon issue. If you buy a new house in Pennsylvania, you probably will need to have a radon test done in your home. When I bought my house, it actually failed the radon test. So the guy who owned the house had to put in a radon system and pay for it before he could sell me the house to get rid of the radon. Basically, there's a thing under my foundation that has a fan that pumps the air out from under my house up over my house and out in the environment above me, so I don't have to breathe in the air coming up, because radon seeps up from underneath us, especially mining areas and such in Pennsylvania. But there's a lot of radon issues. The Festa family, they make radon fans. Well, you guys know them. That's their business, is making these radon fans and radon mitigation systems to get radon out of homes. Mr. Lovick now does that also. Some of you guys know the Lovicks as well. But anyway, radon, I'll ask 2 questions about that, whether it's naturally occurring or a man-made problem, and it is naturally occurring. Radon is a gas that's naturally occurring on the Earth, and it is a radioactive gas. So how radon harms the body is the gas gets in your lungs and leaves behind polonium, and polonium is radioactive. So radon itself doesn't harm you, but radon is radioactive. And I think it was even on the we had on the one page of the book, it had a decay series that went through like 15 or 20 steps. I think radon was in there. It started with uranium, and I think radon appeared in the middle, and then radon turns into other things. But one of the things radon turns into is polonium. Radon's a gas, so you can breathe that in and out of your lungs, no big deal. Polonium is not a gas, so if the radon in your lungs leaves behind some polonium in your lungs, the polonium is forever in your lungs, and polonium can cause tumors, radiation from that. So radon is, if you live in a house with radon and you don't do anything about it, it's almost like you smoke a couple packs of cigarettes a day. I mean, it's pretty harmful to your lungs if it's just left to its own devices. So, but anyway, so question on radon, is it naturally occurring or man-made? It's naturally occurring. How radon harms your body is it leaves polonium trapped in your lungs, and the radiation causes tumors. So that is the 1908 wrap-up, chapter wrap-up, and after today, we are officially, chemistry-wise, done reading things forever. We just go from here into some chapter review, some chapter tests, some finals with vocab, some finals with problems, and that'll take us the whole way through the stretch run, just sort of doing recaps and reviews and worksheets and tests and things. But there are 0 more quizzes and 0 more readings. Hip hip hooray. See you later, guys.